Saban kogi nen sakuna ibri civil juar. Nen online mode re ujo ken abo international che abo od disum dia engayam delang re manten odo mantan gomke ko si menaria kajida abo Michael Dr. Michael Work ken London paite che England paite en lote manten eva Rikel akino international paite lote manten abu Hercules sing MUNDA sertikin akino na international ci foreign paite na akino England paite kin research na en lote abu manten usa tiru jitikin nakne to nen enga ayam delang jo okna abu menatana international mother language day en चितान रे तिसिंग नेन ऑनलाइन मोड रे सबन जुड़ी गति केन को हुंडी जुड़ी केन को ओंडो सबन एसिया हटिंग तन को चे दल तन को सबन को गे अलिंग बिबिकर बुड़ी उली पाते चे हो समाज पाते सबन को गे इकर जो बोते एलादारम ओंडो सिविल ज्वार so first of all I would like to thank our webinar host our beloved friend Hercules Mundaji and Dr. Michael Works and Dr. Eva Rachel and our fellow Usha Tiruji and all our listeners from India and also abroad on this auspicious day that is International Mother Language Day. We were able to speak and hear about our language and importance of our mother tongue and mother language, how it will be precious and it will take advantages from our language and we can develop, we can revitalize and we can improve our language through this our research and our work and our effort, whatever we are doing in our individual life. So it is my privilege to part of this webinar because first time I am joining with our beloved guest from abroad, Mr. Dr. Michael Workji. Saman ko ito na ransri akajichi nentar abu ho ayam citan re abu mantan Michael Work tikin akin research tanakin SOI re tage to abu lelday ibu akin 19 akin research timing re akaji mana to chicken 1972 ite 1974 अपना वो मैंने तना SOR इतिहास रे अबो चिमिते उलेल नामिया चे अबो इतिहास बो नामिया इमिते ते अकिन निनरे एसपुर आयर किन पार्टी किन और इना अबो लगी हो समाज लगी मेडो एसमारंग बीती ची एसमारंग इतिहास किन रिके आका आकड़ा फोटो माध्यम ते ची अकिने रिसर्च माध्यम ते ची अकिने फिल्मग्राफी माध्यम ते तो नितार बुलेल दई अकिने फोटोग्राफी ची अकिने वीडियो को मिना ऑनलाइन रे तो इना अलगिन एसपुरे अकिन एफर्ट किन माकड़ा रिसर्च जाना अलगिन अबु उजुतन पीडी को लगिन चे अबु आयर पा दिलंगन नेंचितान रे चिलिके पाइटी दयो तो खास करे अकिन अबु कोल्हान ओकना अबु मनतना अबु झारखंड पार इन पार अकिन रिसर्च फील्ड ताइकने एन 1972 इतन 74 काजर दो बारसिर में एसपुरे अबु हो कोलोकिन पाइटी कने एन लोता अकिन हो जगरो किन अदा नइना के एसो रासरे काजाली जितलिंग जगरे ना akin ho jagar ko kin et chawal na unan citan kin research ye lagi to ina men ta akin na aling ardas kin ci baruti abu unen ho ayam ci disum ho ho do kau mene abu disum engayam dilang re akin nen webinar re ujuken saben mantan juri gate ko ci kupul ko nen saguna yubre akin baruti ho te ci abu इंगा हम तक जगह के मतलब अरदास करें so I would like to request जी please deliver some whole word to greeting our fellows and our listeners. Welcome, sir.
He's asking me to speak.
You want me to speak in some Ho language?
Yes, sir.
I'm your Ho Kaji Pura Rinkedang Joka Manta. I haven't spoken Ho now for 45 years.
Jarachi, whatever you talk, that's already cleared. We understand that whole language.
But I cannot give a long talk or lecture in Hokaji any longer. I
It's
have
okay,
not
sir.
practiced it very much. Hercules and I speak a little basic Hokaji whenever he comes round here to help me, but only very little.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable message. So over to Hercules.
Let's wait for 1 more minute, and uske baad we'll start the program, because I see some people are still joining.
Yeah, lots of people are coming in. It says
Yes.
there's 7 other people on my screen, but I only have about 9 on the screen.
Yes.
Here's a journalist friend, anthropologist friend of mine, 𝑣�𝑣𝑚𝑒𝑉𝑒, has just joined.
Hey, Eva, nice to meet you.
She worked and studied with the Ho Adivasis in Orissa.
Okay, great. I think we can start now. So, Johar everyone, sabhi ko Johar. I am Hercules Singh Munda. मैं झारखंड से हूँ, and I'm currently studying linguistic at University of Edinburgh. झारखंड सरकार की ओर से मुझे पढ़ने के लिए भेजा गया है. और in this duration, I met Mike, Dr. Michael Yorke, who has studied from School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London, and then he went on to study at the University of Edinburgh. And during that time, he also worked on Rajgond, and along with that, he worked on the whole language. He spent 2 years staying in Jharkhand and living the life of living the life amongst Ho, and in fact living like a Ho, I would say, because I can definitely see a lot of his current living that root back to the whole lifestyle and the tribal lifestyle. One of the achievement that we had in the last year was we made a website for all the archives, or like the videos, the photos, and the document that Mike had collected during his tenure, and we made it possible, made a website so that it can be accessed by anyone and anytime and from everywhere. One of the good side that I see is because of the website, a lot of young generation can find pictures of their ancestors who were back in 70s and there were no camera. Another is it's just a good cultural reference for any young researcher who is looking forward to work on the current situation of Ho. With that, I will quickly show around the website. Give me a minute. So yes, I think अभी आपको दिख रहा होगा. Yes. Can everyone see the screen for my website?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. So to start with, the name of the website is michaelyork.org, and in here there is a section for Ho, where you can find all the pictures which were taken between 1972 and 1974. Given that this back then the best cameras were black and white, so you'll see a lot of pictures which are black and white in nature. And what really fascinates me is the portrait section here, wherein you can find portraits of people, and most probably now they are all uh, in their around, let's say, 60s. So uh, these are now we are the third or second or third generations. Um, we'll also find a lot of few of the films that Mike had shot uh, about Ho, and also in general the other films that he shot during his career. Uh, at last, you'll also find his PhD dissertation along with the Ho grammar, which was by Father J. Deeney. The I would say one of the first dictionaries, English to Ho dictionaries, and Mike his own PhD thesis. With that, uh, I will go ahead with Bikram, and Bikram is the founder of Ho Samaj Life. Uh, we have He has been doing really amazing work in terms of uh, sharing the whole content, telling the latest stories and news about what's happening in the whole community. And most importantly, he is a PhD scholar, currently researching on tribal knowledge systems. With that, over to Bikram and to Mike. So, Mike, would you like to share your experience? Let's start with your experience about how it was living with your background story, how it started, and how was experience living in the in Saranda. And if you want, I can show some pictures around that.
That would be fantastic.
Mhm.
What was it like living in Saranda? It was hard work. It's tough living in exactly the same lifestyle as the other people who are living there. It's an endless struggle to look after yourself, to feed yourself. Although there was a little marketplace about 5 or 6 miles away in a town called Chotanagara, where we could actually buy some rice, which was very nice. But otherwise, we were dependent upon exchanging things with the local villagers, because in those days they had very, very little cash, so you couldn't actually pay for things. You had to swap and exchange things. And that whole exchange and barter system of living together drew you very rapidly into the community. I mean, also what was fascinating was on the fourth day that we stayed in the village, when we were in a tent just outside the Mankey's house, the Mankey's daughter by his second wife, who was a sweet, charming, delightful little child of about 8 years old, came and made friends with us in our tent. And Val then said, she was called Chipri, by the way, and Val then said one day that if we had a daughter, we would call her Chipri. And a great cry came up from the house saying, "Oh, then Mrs. Yorke, my wife, Val, is the mother of Chipri. That makes her the third wife of the Mankey." And then I became the younger brother of the Mankey. So on day 4, they had already included us in their kinship system. And you don't call people by their names there at all. You call them by their kinship relationship to you. So on day 4, they had accepted us, and we became members of their clan. And he happened to be a champion, so we were a champion, and we were related to the headman, which, how can I put it, meant we had been almost totally accepted. But then also, it wasn't until we finally left the village 2 years later, and we gave a great feast for our departure from the village, that the a group of villagers all said, "We had always thought you had come to take our land away from us. And we are deeply admired that never once in all the time you have been here have you tried to take our land." So in a sense, although we were part of the clan system, and this photograph you're looking at now on the screen is taken on the second day we were in the village. And you can see our tent, that rather white triangular thing, right beside the Manky's house. And I am sitting just in front of the tent in that black pullover, and the Manky has got stuff around his head there, and he has just lit a fire to try and keep warm in a cold February morning. But in a sense, although we were included in the clan system and in the kinship system, I think we ultimately remained Diku outsiders. And they had always been frightened that we would take their land away from them. So it was a sort of mixed relationship of acceptance, and they were always amused by us because we were so different. I remember one day when the Manky came to me and he said, "Michael, you will never understand us until you put your paper and pen away and live life like us." He didn't believe that knowledge could come from writing, or that paper was of any value to people at all. And it was, for him, paper was a load of rubbish. There were only 3 people in the village who were in any way literate at all, and of course not in the English Roman alphabet, but in the Devanagari alphabet. So in a sense, I don't think we were ever fully accepted. But they always found us ultimately very amusing. They always called me the clumsy one, because you don't use names, but you do use nicknames. And I had the nickname of the clumsy one because I am 6'2" tall, and they were all of them. I mean, the tallest person in the village, I suspect, was probably 5'6", 5'7", 5'8" at the most. So how can I put it? They enjoyed us hugely. And also, of course, they were pretty poverty-stricken group of people. I mean, while we were there, one whole family collapsed and the 3 children died of starvation. And actually, when we tried to help that family by feeding the children, the Manky came to us and said, "You shouldn't give food to people who don't deserve it because they have failed as a family." And so we had to stop feeding those children. So it was a tough life, to say the very least, but nevertheless hugely involved, because everybody knew you, everybody was amused by you. We were able to, because we took some medicine with us, we were able to help quite a few people who had medical diseases and problems. And we were heavily utilized for our Western medical knowledge as well, although I am no medical doctor in any way at all. So we were useful to them. And also we had a small concrete house in Chaibasa, which was the capital, which was a day and a half's journey away from where we were. And when we couldn't take living in the village because it was extremely tiring and exhausting, we used to retreat to Chaibasa. And 1 or 2 times we took people from our village into Chaibasa. And they were fascinated by that because it expanded their horizon of knowledge. It expanded their sense of geography as to where they lived, because they lived deep in the Saranda forests, which is a heavily sort of mountainous part of the Kolhan. I could talk about my experiences there for ages, but I think I should change the subject now.
Yes. So anyone who would like to ask question, please raise your hand, और आप comment पे भी type कर सकते हैं. So I see घाशीराम हेम्ब्रम, आप सवाल है, उन्होंने रेज किया है, so please go ahead. Ghasiram? Okay, if not, then Alka,
I
Alka
see Akala
Chandramani.
Chandramouli is watching as well.
Yes.
I have had some email contact, I think, with Akala.
Okay. So, Akala Chandramoli ji, over to you if you want to ask any question.
Hello, Ram Ram. One, Samdar Ram Ram.
Ram
Ram
Ram.
Ram.
Ram, I'm very happy to have such a good on this day, International Mother Language Day. So I have been working on tribals, culture and literature, everything here in Adilabad, Adilabad. So recently we have screened the film of Raj Gons of Peacock Run film, which was inspired as along with us in the name of Michael Sarji. So we have been trying to keep a good language here also. We are preserving the language Gondi Kolam Pardan Toti Mannevar. So we have been doing such a continuity legacy of Sars Michael Yorkji. So today, mother's language, we have a promise to you, and he has Yark sir done a wonderful for the Adilabad because we have a rich culture, Rajgons of Adilabad. So he wrote many stories on Raj Velita Pata, like we have read. So this is very inspiration to Telugu Tollywood film also here. So we are this inspiration to continuity of Adilabad, as well as this is the day we are meeting you, Bikram and other also. So they are also for having a language. So keep on working, and this is very interesting today, as well as respective this Gond Kulam. So recently we have conducted the program of preserving the Gond language at ITDA Utnur. Yark sir know very well about that. So do you tell what we have to do now? And so previously you worked for the Rajgons earlier. So the next generation like me and others also working for some other language and documentaries and films. What you suggest here? What type of work we have to do initiate for here, Sarji?
What type of work you have? What, to preserve your language?
Yes. And the documentaries also. So it's been changed over a decades. Where you 1972 Guinea village, and you made a documentaries, you made films. So the continuity have to, we do something documentaries, we do some film also. So I wrote a one story on Rajgons, the preserving the culture of language, lives of their lives. So what you suggest me the next level of Tollywood film here?
Well, you have a very good gentleman called Sumanaspati Reddy, and he has also converted the film I did on the Rajgons into the Gondi language as well. And that has been, I think, displayed all over the place. Unfortunately, I am now an old man. I only have sight in one eye, and I can't use a film camera any longer, because if I put my eye up to the camera, I'm blind in the other eye, so I fall over things. So unfortunately, being the noble age of 82, I'm not able to make movies any longer. So it's up to you. Everybody now has little cameras, and
Yes.
to make your own films and to edit your own films on your laptop is now extremely easy. And in the days when I made the film of the Ho, it was all done on 16mm film. And I had to cut it with a pair of scissors and glue the bits of film together in order to edit the film. But nowadays, with new technology, it's very easy for you to make your own films. And it is very important that indigenous people should record their own thoughts in films, and that they should be seen around the world. Because my belief as an anthropologist is to empower the indigenous voice. And now film is an everyday part of all anthropological research. Anybody who goes to work in the field always takes those tiny little mini DV cameras with them and takes films. And you can even now submit film along with your research results, your thesis, for examination. So It's up to you. Be
Sir,
do it yourselves.
yes, sir, this. Sir, recently, sir, all of you, I think here there are many people here about literatures and preserving language. So Ginnedari is the very popular. You all visit the Ginnedari because where was work for the Raj Gonds, Michael Sarji, it was. So recently, on his birthday, we have screened the film of Peacock Crowns. Everybody has very enthusiastic watch for that film. I was very happy on that day because where he was made a film, we screened that film, and everybody has to be some. So they have now they have preserving the culture, and but we have to keep on this only. So I requested to all who among across India, they should visit the Ginnedari people. They know about, they should research on Rajgons. They should research on Kolam also, because here Adilabad is very backward, some of telling, but where this is a very right time to visit all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Akala.
Thank you, Akala. Director Research, sir, आप अगर कुछ पूछना चाहते हैं तो, if you want to raise.
Good evening, sir. This is Dr. Priyonil Basu from the Kalinga Institute of Social Sciences.
Right.
And it was a fascinating talk. I felt as if I were there and I could see through your eyes. So thank you for sharing your experiences with us. And I do have a request. So as part of our course curricula, films on tribes are shown exhibited at our university, and it's a credit course. So there are films on tribes that are shown at our university. I was wondering if you could kindly permit your films to be shown as part of our curriculum at our university.
You're asking whether my films could be shown at your university?
Yeah, if you could kindly permit that.
As
part of the curriculum.
They are available on the website. You can play them yourself directly from the website, and you are absolutely free to show them whenever you want. But also you should point out that the film actually doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the BBC, and they have the copyright of it. But they won't challenge you for showing it, because even they have lost their copy of the film.
Oh.
It's vanished somewhere in their archives. So I happen to have a copy simply because I recorded it on VHS on the day that it was broadcast. So that's why I have a copy, and there is no reason why you shouldn't screen it wherever you want. And indeed, it has already been screened in Hyderabad a number of times.
Right. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you at our university one day if you ever would like to visit.
Good. Okay. Yeah.
Dear Michael, thank you for your valuable talk. Here our director researcher sharing some points. So I am so extremely thankful to our director research, because I am also part of that university, which is world largest tribal university, college Kalinga Institute of Social Sciences, KISS 𝑣ဣ𝑣𝑗𝑣𝑒𝑒𝑁 University, where I am doing my PhD in indigenous knowledge, science and technology. So if you offer or any talk and other researches, whatever you have, we can access in our university. If you allow, then it is privilege for us and our tribal fellows also.
Yeah, everything on the website is now publicly available to everybody all over the world, which does make me a little bit worried, because giving access to all this material, some of it is quite personal as well. Some of it is, photographs of individuals. What right do I have to make this totally publicly accessible to everybody? So there are many ethical questions that I find myself getting involved with by making it public. But it was mainly the Raj Gond people who demanded that I make it public. And when I made it public, I decided to include all my photographs of the HO people and the MUNDA people as well. but it's a risky thing to do because it can be misused. People can download my photographs and use them, and they do use them to try and increase tourism into the area. Now, do I want to encourage tribal tourism for foreigners who are looking for exotic side of India, that I make it accessible to them, all this knowledge about people? So it's a risky thing to do. And I would love to hear from you if you are in favor of having your early history and your early life, as I understand it, made totally public worldwide.
Thank you, sir.
I think, okay, sorry to interrupt. First thing is, in case the meeting ends in 12 minutes, I have shared a link for the next meeting. So please just join using the second link, if you have questions. Bikram, Mike का सवाल ये था कि फोटोज और वीडियोस जब ऑनलाइन आप कहीं जब डालते हैं तो आप देखोगे कि वेबसाइट पे बहुत सारे लोगों के भी फोटो है, और ये इसके जब फोटोज ऑनलाइन रहते हैं, जो फोटोज और वीडियोस जब जो कि रिसर्च के पर्पस से लिया गया है, लेकिन जब वो पब्लिक के पास आता है तो उसका लोग गलत इस्तेमाल भी कर सकते हैं, चाहे वो कोई मार्केटिंग के लिए इस्तेमाल करे, अपने या पर्सनल पर्पस के लिए इस्तेमाल करे। तो इस पे आपका क्या कहना है एज अ आदिवासी? आपका क्या कहना है कि ये फोटो जो, क्योंकि माइक ने फोटोज जो लिए थे, ही टुक इट विद द पर्पस ऑफ sharing, like doing a research on the community, but now because the photos and videos are on internet, there is this question that what if it is misused, and what is your take, or even anyone from the audience, अगर लोगों का इसमें क्या ख्याल है, if anybody want to share. And after that, Shruti, I see you have a question. We will we'll take that on the next next link which I have shared, because I think by that time will be over. So yeah, Vikram,
Okay. The link is available what, on email, or have you sent it by WhatsApp?
I have sent you on WhatsApp, but I've shared that on the chat, on the chat in the meeting. If you can, everyone, if you can see, there is on the chat button on the corner, and wahan pe I have shared the meeting link.
It's on the captions. No,
Yes.
Chat.
Okay. Anyway, विक्रम, अगर आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगे इसमें, आपको क्या लगता है कि ऐसे, या फिर डॉक्टर डायरेक्टर सर, if what's your thought?
Yeah, with valid permission and अगर फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर आप देखा जाए तो अपना इंडिजिनस नॉलेज या अपना खुद के ट्राइब के ऊपर अगर हम कह सकते हैं ऑटो एथनोग्राफिक रिसर्च कह सकते हैं हम, अगर उसको यूज करें या तो ले, फिर भी अगर विथ परमिशन और उसका क्रेडिट दे के अगर हम उसको अपना फील्ड में यूज कर सकते हैं, दैट्स नॉट इशू, ज्यादा मतलब मायने नहीं, मतलब उसका इतना इशू नहीं होगा। बट कहीं ना कहीं ज्यादातर रिसर्च फील्ड में ही इसको ज्यादातर यूज कर सकते हैं। अगर प्राइवेट या तो पर्सनल पर्पज के लिए देखा जाए तो जैसे कि वो क्या कर सकता है, इधर कॉपीराइट वीडियो या तो फोटोज को लेके अपना रेवेन्यू जनरेट कर सकता है, तो कहीं ना कहीं गलत बात तो होगी। वरना रिसर्च फील्ड में देखा जाए तो एक जेन्युइन कह सकते हैं उसको, हम वैलिड कह सकते हैं विद परमिशन ऑफ ओनर्स।
So from a legal point of view, if you own the copyright by virtue of being the photographer or videographer, then nothing stops you legally from earning from it, but ethically, it should be with permission and due credit and sharing of the profits wherever possible. And if the intention of the photographer or the videographer is to exploit the person involved, it should not be promoted. And if there is any kind of misrepresentation of any of the customs, beliefs, or status of the tribe, or which the tribe perceives to be detrimental to its image, then the tribe should have the right to object and ask for the picture or the video to be removed, whether or not it's copyrighted. So that's my take on it. Otherwise, it's a legal question and an ethical question.
I totally agree. You have the right to complain about anything. If you go to the website, there is a little thing on the top right hand of the screen which says contact. And on the contact thing, you can email me and you can send me any message you like, and we can take up discussions on the issue, and I will happily remove anything that anybody thinks is sensitive or should not be there. I'm totally open to doing that. And Hercules will also get a copy of that communication. Both himself and myself will get it. And even Hercules, being an Adivasi himself, he may have very different motivations to what I have as a Diku, an outsider, and an academic researcher. So he also is able to make decisions to remove something if it is so required.
Shruti, I think you can go ahead with your question. Thanks for that answer, Mike.
But I think it's very interesting, the problems of going public with intimate information that an anthropologist picks up about people, about societies, and the way that they operate. In the past, most anthropologists published in text, in books, which was a very different matter. Sure, that is one way of going public, but it's very different in this modern age of mass communication. To send stuff out which maybe is ethically mistaken.
Shruti, over to you. Shruti, can you hear? How is Arya?
Can I perhaps share my experience?
Yeah, sure, Rachel.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your talk, Michael. That was very interesting, and I was back in her country for a while. Of course, I can't answer your ethical question, but I would like to share my experience. I've published 2 books on the HO, and I made it a point before publishing to go around in the village where I did work to ask the people, and if they agreed if I published their photos. And they agreed. And of course, your question is not answered by that, because one wonders if villagers, whole villagers in the jungle, when they agree and they want to be polite and they want to see me happy and they agree, do they really know what they agree to? But anyway, I tried hard, of course, when writing about the villagers to be serious and to write about them in a way that they can be proud about it. And I also made it a point when the books were published, and in fact, I'm a little proud because my last book in 2022 on the HO was published by Manohar in Delhi, and I hope it is in the TRTC in Radhampur and Chaibasa, and at the university there. I took the book to the villagers and made them leaf through it. And from the impression that I got, they were quite proud about it, to be in the book. So that is the most I thought I could do. But of course, I see your point. Books are not the mass media that you are talking about. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. The same very much applies to the films that I have made. Originally, I did take the film I made of the Ho back to the Ho village about 8 years later, and I screened it in the village, and everybody was absolutely fascinated by it. They were howling with laughter when images of their mother, their father, and of themselves appeared on screen. So there, they couldn't understand the film because, of course, it was in the English language, though there was some Hokaji spoken to the camera and was in Hokaji, but then it was subtitled in English for the English audience. But how can it be? For them, it was just new and exciting and totally different to see these things flickering on a sheet hung up between two trees. And I don't think they really understood what film was. And they didn't understand that it had been broadcast on everybody's television sets in London. So it's absolutely fascinating. Everybody in the world has totally different viewpoints and totally different ways of looking at the world. And can one, as an anthropologist and a filmmaker, cross those boundaries? Or when you do cross those boundaries, you take on the most amazing responsibility.
Sorry to interrupt, guys. We just have one more minute. So I've shared the link for the next meeting. Just join that, and Shruti, आपका सवाल will take, और बाकी और किसी को भी अगर जो भी सवाल है अगली मीटिंग लिंक पे प्लीज ज्वाइन कर लीजिए, and we'll take it there. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for this wonderful session and conversation with our beloved fellow and our indigenous fellows who are present here online mode. So iramante sana magamisi ko aling HO Samaj dapat 𝑣𝑚𝑣𝑗𝑣𝑃 muli dan disum ciot disum dia inga hayam telangre saban neta betakan ko ikirje bakte bitiam ni chalakwa jiraci editor abu baro research clerkin researcher kin abu ye pet menakine mente agaji international ci foreign fighter akin dan ho citan re kin researcher kada to akin online link ko menage to abu share abu ona musin ci nan ye abu group kore ci abu padaye abu akin ci nak paiti kede ona inci tanda abu ho ko ono cili ko paiti taye ona develop ci air para abu bahasa ono abu retrieve ci abu pura besar abu lal daye eso areta akin abu citan kin padagra to inamente eso subitiam. So thank you so much all are present here, and let's join.
शेयर नहीं थे, जो कि पहले एक्सेसिबल नहीं थे. आप देखोगे कि मोस्ट ऑफ द पिक्चर्स आर इन ब्लैक एंड वाइट, और इवन BBC has lost the copy of the movie. So what we are trying to do is just share it, and but there are people who are actively trying to promote whole language through films. Yes. If you want to get connected, I think Bikram is a very good resource. Bikram भी एक example है जो कि फिल्म या शॉर्ट कंटेंट के थ्रू whole language को प्रमोट करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. So Bikram is a good example there.
And also, I would love to say that Hercules is working very seriously as a linguist to record and define and make grammars and make vocabularies of the Mundari language. So he is our hope for the future in trying to preserve Mundari as a language, because I think most of the education that goes on now very hard amongst Adivasis and tribal people is normally in Hindi or Telugu or whichever majority language is in the area, and very little education is done actually in the Adivasi languages. Though I would also like to say that my professor, Christoph von Führer-Heimendorf, who worked amongst the Rajgons, started an education system, and I'm now talking in the period of 1947 to 49, in the indigenous Gondi language. But those kind of things are entirely dead now, and education needs to be being done in the indigenous languages so they are not lost any longer. I mean, I think all of you who are at the KISS Institute, the Kalinga Institute, you are all speaking Hindi, I think. And I think your indigenous languages are rapidly getting lost because of the need for education in order to work in the Indian modern nation.
Okay. Mathura, yes, you have a question, I think.
Yes, good evening, all of you. Namaskar, Johar. I am Mathura Alda from Mayurbhanj and a teaching faculty in philosophy at a college. I must thank Mitchell sir, Dr. Mitchell sir. He has done extensive work, both empirically and rational part in form of video film. So as we were discussing about the publication to publish is to common people. So I think it would be good because the people who are working on whole language can connect today's with the past. So as I am working on school teaching in Ho, or I'm combining with some one educational part, that is a Ho Language Education Council, facing some wording problems or some cognitive part of last words, or we are not getting word properly. So that would have, I think, help us to promote or enrich our language also by your pictures and what HERCULES has shared. I have seen we can afraid it or give a new form of words, I think, for dictionary and other purpose. So thank you very much, sir, for your valuable work. So I want to know, sir, could you have observed that there is a very hasty change in word and its development in Ho particularly. So some people in Ho are not able to get the words. So all this problem, how can we get out from this also, please, if you can?
I don't know. I mean, when you talk to your friends, do you talk in Mundari Kaji or Ho Kaji, or do you talk in a Hindi language? I mean, I think in your own friendship, in your relaxed thing, I hope you speak in your indigenous language. That is the way to encourage that indigenous language, is simply don't use the dominant national languages. And I mean, there are so many national languages in India that I can't name them all.
Okay. Thanks, sir. We are speaking in Ho. These problems comes to us particularly.
Yeah, I'm sure it comes to you. I wish I knew the answer and could help you. but I don't. It's up to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
आई थिंक एक अच्छा सॉल्यूशन ये हो सकता है कि माइक देयर इज द dictionary by Father Dini in the website, which can be a very good reference point to understanding how the language was.
But I think it's very interesting. That dictionary is very old-fashioned indeed. And also, one of the other little details is that in different Ho villages, they speak the Ho Kaji language in a very different dialectical form. Because when I was there 52 years ago, people never traveled very far. And the language that was spoken in Saranda, the Ho language as spoken in Saranda, was very different to the Ho language that was spoken in Chaibasa or Jinkpani or Orissa. So there is vast dialectical differences even within the Ho language, though I don't know if that is true nowadays because transport is so much easier. And I mean, Adivasis who lived in Saranda forest were totally out of touch with other Adivasis who maybe lived in Chakrarapur, for instance.
That's true. I agree. Yeah.
And I mean, also Ho Kaji and Mundari Kaji are mutually understandable. I think a Ho can understand mostly what a Munda is saying, and vice versa. So can a Munda understand what a Ho is saying, but the dialect is very different.
Yes, sir. Awesome.
So I don't know how you preserve indigenous languages, because indigenous languages are alive, they are changing the whole time. And one of Hercules' major jobs is to bring all the dictionaries that were done by Jesuit fathers and missionaries up to date. And what he is doing is a very important work indeed, which is why he has been given money by the Jharkhand government to come and study linguistics in expensive countries like the United Kingdom and America.
Thank you, Mike. I think Mangu has a question.
Yeah, before I present my questions, I'm just, I can't help myself but to answer, to give my inputs on what Mr. Mathura raised. The problem that he raised in linguistics is specifically, it's called corpus planning. So what he's trying to say is that in Ho, we don't have words for complicated for complex ideas. For example, what do you call the administration? What do you call the various scientific terms and all of that? So I would like to present my opinion on this.
Let me add that even in English, we use the Latin language to say many things which we can't actually say in English. And an enormous amount of our language is actually Latin-based, which is the language of ancient Rome, which is entirely dead in the world, but is alive within the English language.
Yes, Michael, but there's one key difference that I found between how English is so good in adapting words of Latin and Greek origin, but how that is a problem when it comes to Ho. And as per my observations, the problem is the phonology, because even when I speak in Ho, I find it very difficult to incorporate English and Hindi words because the phonologies are very different. And therefore, it's kind of like it breaks the rhythm of my speech. So that's my realization. And from what I've observed, all those people who have been writing in Ho, in the past, for it can be Lakubudra or other people like that. what they have done is whenever they come across things that they are unable to express, they either try to create new words. That is the most preferred kind of method of avoiding these words which are not native to the language. So I've realized that there is this component, this phonetics component, that complicates things. And the answer to this, in my view, is to look at the morphology of our own language and try to create new words. I'll give an example for the audience here. So I was just wondering, what can be the word for, let's say, system? So in my analysis, what I have done is, in Ho, we have this so-called the infixes. For example, from the word, the root by means to make. You can add a na in between, na, and make it banai. So the banai, turns the verb into an abstract concept, the composition of something like that. And then we also have an infix, ta. So ta also has a similar function, but it's not exactly similar to na. So by incorporating the two infixes into one root, that is by, so we can get something like banatai. So it can express the what do I call, the abstract idea of a system. So that has not been done. So I too am currently studying linguistics, and this is my focus area of how to expand the vocabulary by using the native methods.
I think that's absolutely fascinating, and I totally agree with you. And all languages are living things. They are alive, they are changing, they are adapting, they're being altered the whole time. Language is never static. What also does worry me is everybody has been trying to create and invent different alphabets for written Ho language. And even that has become a politically manipulated subject, which worries me hugely.
Yeah, Michael, I have three questions for you, but I don't know how we are going to have that. Okay, I'll start with my first question, and that is on the title of the documentary. So, out of all things that you could have chosen for the documentary as the title, why did you settle on this rice pot reference? Because I personally don't see this rice pot reference as the defining thing of being a Ho. And even among families, the rice pot, this mandi chaturenko, this thing,
Yes.
yeah, it is only this only comes into play when there's when a new child is born, and when there's someone has died, or whether it's a question of inheritance. So it's only in a specific domain that this thing comes up. So why did you settle for this reference as the title of your documentary?
Because as an anthropologist, I was absolutely fascinated with the whole concept of Miad Mandi Chaturenko. And this was a major way that the Ho organized themselves into groups of Miad Mandi Chaturenko. We belong to the same rice pot. And the rice pot itself, which sits in the Ading, which is a sacred area for the Ho, and I was never allowed to touch the Mandi Chatu of any of the people I lived with. It was always kept separately, and it was often in a separate room, which was considered a sacred room. But then most people who lived in Dobil, the village in which I lived, had very poor houses with only one room and maybe a tantara room, a room where they kept all their belongings and their crops. So in fact, the chula, the hearth where they cooked, had the Mandi Chatu on it. And it was, I could look at it, I could see it, simply because they were a very simple, unwealthy people. But I felt that this Mandi Chatu, this rice pot, was an extremely important thing in uniting clan-based communities. It united the Purty clan, for instance. And to me, the rice pot was absolutely at the center of the Ho people, and it was a powerful aspect of their identity and who they believed they were, and thought of themselves as being people of one rice pot.
I'll tell you one more thing. In my village, for example, we have out of all the Purty people, so there are 3 branches of the Purty, and all of them are different Mandi Chatus.
Yes.
So, yeah. So I asked this question because I never found it that unifying kind of an aspect, because even though I knew that others are Purty, somehow because of this Mandi Chatu thing, they were different, and we were different. So we had this thing.
I suspect in the modern era, this concept of mere Mandi Chatu is slightly dying out and is becoming, how can I put it, old-fashioned, and doesn't matter quite so much nowadays as it used to matter 50 years ago.
Yes, I think that is true.
I mean,
so I'll come to my...
in this modern day of modern communications, which you are all involved in, look, we are talking internationally on one little television screen now. The world is such a vastly different, such a hugely different place to what it was 50 years ago. And my whole intention in setting up this website is to give the Ho people and other Adivasi groups some historical understanding of what their past was 50 years ago.
Michael, you spoke about this historical thing. My next question was about this the awareness of history. Yes. Because I, in my undergraduate, I studied Mandarin, and when we look at the Chinese society, they have a very strong historical consciousness, calling themselves, they trace their ancestry back to the Qin Shi Huangdi. So I mean, they families, they have genealogies dating back to 7th, 8th centuries and like that. But when I look at my own society, I find it very how do I say, it's very perplexing to know that, for example, in my family, my great-grandfather moved to the present village where we live, and nobody knows where he came from originally. So I find this extremely, I find it very hard to cope with that there are societies who have genealogies going back to thousands of years, and we are unable to recall a few generations back in time. So how do you think the awareness of history, this thing affects the society as a whole?
Let me tell you a fascinating story. When I lived in 𝑣�𝑣𝑗𝑣𝑃 in Surrender Forest, one reason that I became accepted in society was I decided to train up my own fighting cock. And I got a fighting cock. Well, actually, I was given a fighting cock because my wife had cured somebody with a medicine, and they gave us this cockerel, which was a young cockerel. And I decided I would try to train it up to become a fighting cock so I could go to the Singpara in order to join in with the other men of the whole clan. And the first thing I was asked was, I had to imbue it with the spirit of my ancestors. And I happen to know my ancestors back for 14 generations. And when the village Dewa came to me to put my ancestors' spirits into my fighting cock, I could give him 14 generations of ancestors. He could not believe it, because most of the people of 𝑣�𝑣𝑗𝑣𝑃 only knew 3 or 4 generations. Therefore, my fighting cock was considered very powerful fighting cock because it had such a huge ancestry, and also it had a British ancestry. And let's face it, at that period, the British people were still the Raj. So there were 18 generations of rulers in my fighting cock. And indeed, my fighting cock won for me 31 fights because it was seen as such a powerful fighting cock. And as a result, I had a lot of cockerels to eat for dinner. So when ancestry is included with sport and pleasure and gives you a powerful reputation, that shows the power that history can have amongst the whole people.
That is really interesting.
It meant I had a very strong fighting cock. And this was an animal. But why did it win all those fights? And it finally lost a fight because my wife got extremely drunk at the village market. And she rushed up and said, "Bajabu, we will lay down a bet." When my cock was beside another cock, which was a huge, very angry cock, and it killed my cock dead in 4 seconds flat. End of story. So you do have a sense of ancestry and you do have a sense of history of your own people. But sure, it is dependent on remembering who your great-grandfather was, which very few people can do. And even I don't know who my great-grandfather was, but we now have writing and we have written history. And you as a Munda people, as a Ho people, are developing a Munda and a Ho history. And my whole intention with this website is to give you some sense of your own history. Only a 50-year history.
That's very well put.
History is terribly important to all of us. It defines our culture and who we are and our sense of identity. And I hope you can develop a strong sense of your own tribal history.
That's a very powerful message. Mangu, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, I had another one. This is the final one for.
We'll be taking. This is the last one we'll be taking, and after that we'll finish. Yep.
Yeah. So since this event is held for the International Mother Tongue Day, so my question is related to it's related to language. So I've seen that whenever people speak about protecting the language, preserving the language, what the argument is that language is our identity and therefore we must preserve it. So this is the most common argument that I have seen people make. But I really find this argument to be I feel that this argument doesn't hold, because in India, the Indian society is such that because of the caste system and the tribes and all of these things, the system is such that even if a group, even if a group of people lose their language, they will still be able to retain their identity. For the example being the Gonds, who out of around 13 million Gonds, only 2 million speak Gondi. Yet the rest of them, they have maintained their identity. Is the same is the case with the Bhumij. Bhumij is a branch of the Munda family. They, out of all the Bhumij people that exist, very few speak the Bhumij language, yet they have retained their identity as a Bhumij. So to make an argument saying that we must preserve language because it's our identity, I find this argument to be very unconvincing. So I would use some other argument rather. So what are your views on this?
My view on it is that language is one of many factors that creates a common identity. But there are other things like history, like past, like your belief system, your religious system, your what's it called, Sarnadorum system. There are many other things that unite people and bind them together. Your sense of opposition to the outsider. I mean, Adivasis have this, or the Munda Adivasi, the whole Munda Adivasis have this very powerful sense of diku, of the outsider. And by defining people as not you, you are defining yourself as us. But then in your language also, in your Mundari language, which is, let's face it, is an Austroasiatic language, you have concept of inclusion and exclusion within your pronouns, which we don't have in our languages. So your language itself, you're endlessly defining insider and outsider. I mean, I think language is one of the most important things in creating a shared and common identity. But it is not the only thing that does it. Your economic level, whether you live in a forest, whether you herd cattle or not, all of those things are the elements that bind you together. And now that you are educated people and you're all moving into a modern world of education and jobs and working for companies, you are entering little small societies which are all the people who work for the same company or work in the same kind of profession. Like journalists are all members of the same journalist family because they have a common sense of identity around journalism. So in the modern world, this concept of identity is rapidly fragmenting and being recreated in new ways the whole time. And I think we all have to accept that and live with it.
Okay. Mike, I have one question, which is, how can people reach you? If anyone from the audience want to reach out to you, how can they reach you?
Well, I am rather old-fashioned. I mainly use email. And the best way is to have my email address, which I will give you now. The other way is that I also use quite a lot is, what's that damn thing called? Chat box. What's it not called?
WhatsApp.
Sorry?
WhatsApp or Facebook.
WhatsApp. I use WhatsApp a lot, but I'm an elderly old gentleman and I find the complicated ways of communicating unbelievably complicated. And I'm quite happy with just WhatsApp and email. And if you want to email me, I will now give you my email address.
I'll do that in the group. I'll just do that.
Okay, yeah. And I think for WhatsApp, you have to know my telephone number.
Yes.
And you can please do make my telephone number and my email address not too public. I don't want everybody to have access to the damn thing, or else I have a nightmare. But to the select people who are present in this discussion now, I'd be happy if they all had it. And if they treat it with respect and don't hand it out to everybody.
I think everybody can say yes to that.
So do I. And I'm happy for it to be published in the, I don't know how you do it. You put it up on the discussion panel, I think.
Yes, discussion panel.
Which I'm not actually quite sure how to operate.
Okay.
I know how to operate it in the other chat room, not Google Meet, but whatever it calls itself, the one that has
Zoom.
Zoom. I know how to do it in Zoom, but I'm not quite sure how to do it in this program.
That's all right. So सभी के लिए मैंने डॉक्टर माइकल का ईमेल आईडी और व्हाट्सएप नंबर ग्रुप पे शेयर किया है. प्लीज इस नंबर को, स्पेशली नंबर को रिस्पेक्ट के साथ यूज करें कि अगर आपको हो के बारे और जानना है, पूछना है या कुछ डिस्कशंस करे तो माइक हमेशा अवेलेबल है आपके सवालों को आंसर करने के लिए. ही इज ऑलवेज देयर टू आंसर योर क्वेश्चन इफ यू वांट टू हैव एनी डिस्कशन. But apart from that, please respect the privacy. Just because you have the number, तो आप इसको नंबर को हर किसी को मत बांटिए. जो कि जो जो जिनको जरूरत है आप उनको आप अपने तक रखिए और उनकी बात को माइक के पहुंचा के फिर आप माइक तक पहुंचाइए. और इसके साथ आई थिंक हम लोग का मीटिंग ये एंड होता है. एंड विक्रम, क्लोजिंग में आई विल रिक्वेस्ट यू टू से वर्ड ऑफ थैंक टू डॉक्टर माइक.
ये ठीक सही बात है. बहुत धन्यवाद हरक्यूलिस.
I think so. Okay, thank you so much, Honorable Michael Work जी, जिसने बहुत ही 50-60 साल पहले का अपना हो संप्रदाय के बारे में बताया और उसका हिस्ट्री, इतिहास लिखने का अभी हमें कहीं ना कहीं सौंपा है. तो thank you so much. Even in London now it's afternoon time, but in India this is evening time. So you gave us a valuable, precious time for Ho people, which will help for further research and further to write our own history, and we'll revitalize and create some different way to establish and identify our history. So इसके साथ अपने हरकुलेस मुंडा जी है जो कि मुंडा संप्रदाय से हैं, जो अभी वो भी लंदन में रिसर्च कर रहे हैं, पीएचडी कर रहे हैं. तो मुंडा के साथ साथ वो हो के भी वो मतलब ट्री लैंग्वेज उसका एक ट्रिंगुअल वेबसाइट या तो एप्लीकेशन पे काम कर रहे हैं. तो उसका अवेलेबल टाइम और उसका होस्टिंग करना बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद अपना कोलिग्स. तो साथ ही अपना मंगू पुर्ती जी जो कि अपने हो ट्राइब से अभी जेएनयू में अपना रिसर्च कर रहे हैं भाषा के ऊपर. तो उनका अपने हो लैंग्वेज में हो भाषा के ऊपर जो टूल एंड टेक्नोलॉजी वेबसाइट या अपना एप्स है वो बहुत ही अच्छी तरह निभा रहे हैं. कीमैन जो हम टाइप कर रहे हैं वेबसाइट पे, which we use to type in whole language, that is in computer and mobile application, mobile Android software. So we Mangu Purty had did that job for our upcoming generation and other tool and technology. उसके साथ साथ अपना मथुरा अल्डा जी है जो कि प्रोफेसर है जसपुर कॉलेज के, अपने हो प्रोफेसर है जो अपना वैल्यूएबल क्वेश्चन पूछे अपने ऑनरेबल को माइकल जी का. तो जितने भी अपने भाई जो हो संप्रदाय से सबन को अलिपे तिक्र जीवते बीतीम आनन सगुन आयुब्रेन एन दिसुम और दिसुम एंगायम दिलंग रे चना चे अब हो चितान रे जो का कहीं ना कहीं अब पढ़ाव तंत्रो चे रिसर्च तंत्रो चे कजे तंत्रो चे आरपा एतन तन रे तो पापरी जिसो को ओकना बो मनतना पापरी हिते हासा को चे पापरी दस्तूर को hayam को एनेना को के पंजनम चे सालानम चे अकिरनम चे गुता नामतन लिका बो चिरगल तन रदो नैनिकन अबो हिस्ट्रियन चे आयरा हो को 50-60 साल आयर पाइटकन को इनको योगदान कहीं ना कहीं एस्प्रे में ना हुए. तो अब हो कोई मिलता है जगर अड़ंग चे कुली कोनोली ये तक को ताई किना अब जो ओरल कम्युनिकेशन को मनता ना चे काजी का पजिते मेंदो ना एना आयर तक ओला तोड़े चे फिल्म माध्यम ते चे कैमरा माध्यम ते को कोई तड़ा अब अनेका अब लंदन पाते माइकल वर्क जीत किन चले क्या किना फिल्म माध्यम ते डॉक्यूमेंट तरीके आके इंसान के रिसर्च तड़ा अब सरंडा पाचे कोल्हान चाइवा सपारे बार सिर में किन ताई किना 1932 ते 1974 जंग मनते सुपुरे आकिन नरे एन लोता बो इटा अब foreign paita research ko baita de but na abu ho ko do abu ina chitan abu olete abu uru itna che uru kare ko kain na kain 1954 abu lakhodra sahib tekne ulang noeten noete ke फिर भी en air noetro पूरे ऑल दोकाता इकना तो इटा हो कोला तोड़े बट ना अब ओलेतिया समय में ना तो नैन मन हिस्ट्रियन को चलन मन को जो आयर अबिति को एना को इस्तेमाल चे व्यवहार कहता वो आयर पाबू ओलियम चे अब कंटेंट को बाइये और अब रिसर्च को बाइये चे बॉय को पुती को चे फिल्म को ना मनतना चे ऑडियो को बावता ना एना को कुरुमुटु चुटावना तो इना लगे के एस्पुरे एना मेनो प्रेरणा दई तई किना तिसिंगे इंगा आयाम दिलंग रे ina mente saban ko ge mar unilan konen online madhyam te pure ikil jimat bitte modong se osmaj lepete onen tamam online abu foreign che international law che na abu national law che abu nenta nen online rete saban ko ge mar aling pete ikil jimat bitte so thank you so much once again from our whole community and from India will wish you for your long live for your journey and bright future. We hope we'll contact you for our reference and to know our history. So you have did wonderful job before. It means in the 60 years ago you have did that job, but we are still trying that job. Thank you so much, sir.
And thank you very much indeed. And ein pura rasa ein abelote jagger kedain.
Eso es rasa. Alio es kure rasa ikir jibat.
Ram ram.
Johar.
Bugin time me.
Eso bade ke. Abena bugite tay kena banjarang situ jake.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye bye, Johar ke.